The name Harald is very special for me as I'm from Berlin and Germany. And I think just a couple of weeks ago, finally, after I don't know how many years, we finally opened up a new square. I think it's um, the the name of it is from a German entertainer, and his name is Harald
Mm.
Junke, and he I think is our German version of Frank Sinatra, kind of. So he was doing movies and singing and theater, and nevertheless, I am very happy that I have you here today, Harald. Thanks for listening to my awkward opening, but I'm always a little bit nervous. I said this. Yeah, maybe you can give a short intro, and then we're trying to explore why you are here and why I think you would be a perfect guest for this podcast.
Yeah, sounds good. Well, I'm definitely no modern day Frank Sinatra, but slightly different interests. Well, currently I'm CTO at Comma.ai. I lead the Autonomy team, and we're kind of a small self-driving car startup. We make aftermarket ADAS kits, so you can kind of upgrade the ADAS functionality in older cars, like let's say 2019 Toyota Corolla. So it like steers and does the gas and the brake on the highway. More like a modern ADAS system like Tesla Autopilot. And that's kind of what we do. Just sell those devices and we improve the autonomy software.
This is awesome, especially for me coming from Germany, and everyone was there was always a big, I don't know if it was jealousy or being overconfident from the German car industry, and looking at Tesla and the promise from autonomous driving. We are not there yet, fully at least, but we dive into this a little bit later. First, I would like to understand, and this is always something I do at the beginning of the podcast, like who you are, how things got together, were you always interested in tech? Did you have some people that inspired you, or you were surrounded by? These are the things I'm interested in. So let's go back as far as you like, and then and then we see how the journey will develop.
As far back as I'd like. I mean, this is not something I think about that often, but I'd say the first things that come to mind is that as a kid, I was really into Legos. And
Hmm.
then I feel like the Legos transitioned into adding motors to the Legos. And I don't know, I remember making some kind of remote control boat with Legos, and then the Legos kind of transitioned into to more like electronics toys. I don't know, when I was maybe 12 or 13, I really started just building stuff, building, I don't know, my own working gaming computer and that sort of stuff. And kind of grew from there. So it's kind of as far as I can remember, I was interested in technology. I think my dad had some interest too that he kind of tried to convey to me, and that's part of it. My dad really likes trains. I think that's a common interest in Germany. So I think he inspired me with that a little bit.
It is very common among older people, but I just learned that a very young woman that will be on the podcast in a few weeks, and she is doing also robotics, and she said that she's also into trains. So it seems like parents were able to bring the joy that trains can bring to their kids. Um, a lot of people that I have on the podcast are interested in not necessarily either, but hardware or software. I have a lot of people that told me I got into coding very early on, or I was trying to assembling my toaster very early on. Did you have a like something that was very interesting to you very early on, or was that something you always had a different yeah a bigger idea of what's interesting for you?
I mean, I think my interest really started, like I said, when I was like maybe 12. I was always kind of into reading books about science. I don't know, one book that comes to mind that I feel like is been a really positive inspiration is Bill Bryson's Short History of Nearly Everything. I don't know if you've heard of it, but it's kind of
Mhm.
a general overview of the history of science, and that was always kind of very inspiring. But then on my projects, I mostly did remote control stuff. I don't know, I built like quadcopters and tricopters when I was in high school. That was kind of what I was focused on. Coding kind of came later when it realized it was important and useful. But I was more interested in building things in the real world, especially electronics. But as it goes, coding kind of became necessary to do a lot of cool stuff. So then I got interested in that too.
The necessity of doing things you were not involved with, or some people even said they weren't very good at it and didn't really like it. But it's interesting to see that when the right incentive is there, then we are able to do things we were unable or didn't want to do before.
Hmm.
So was that something that uh, as you said, you understood what it could do for you, and there's a reason why you got into that?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, it's hard to look back now, but also there's just when I was getting into it, I think one of the first things I really did with programming was Project Euler, which, if you've heard of it, it's like some kind of mathematical problem website where they have it's basically just a set of mathematical problems that go from incredibly easy, you can solve them in like 20 seconds, to you can spend days on them and not really figure it out. And if you solve it, you get to see everyone else's solutions, which can be in any programming language or anything. Um, and that's really what got me into programming, because it was really cool to try your own thing and then kind of see what all these other people did, and it's just completely different. I think it's still somewhat popular today, actually, just not as big.
Hmm. When I talk to people regarding their interest in and how early they need to choose them in high school, and that means not only doing the right courses very well, but also joining. You were talking about projects earlier on.
Hmm.
Some of my guests told me that they joined the robotics team of Formula, whatever the equivalent in the US is, like the Formula One amateur teams. So you build a racer basically, or
Hmm.
planes. Was there something that you did mostly on your own and in private, or also later on in school? Have you been involved in other projects working with other people?
Um, So me personally, when I was in high school, I'd say is when I really started to do stuff. That's when I was like building my own computers, building remote control cars and planes and all that stuff. And at that time, I was doing everything by myself and just with my family. Kind of was interested in those things too, and they'd help me out if I needed help, or would come along to the field if I wanted to try some new plane. So they were kind of always very supportive, but they just weren't really helping with the engineering stuff, just with just being there and logistics. But in terms of, I was never part of any kind of group until I went to university. I'd say my high school didn't really encourage any of this stuff. There wasn't really any options available. But then at university in Belgium, I mean, there's all kinds of joined some robotics competitions and stuff like that. But in high school, I did everything by myself.
I think I had one person on the podcast from Belgium. He's yeah, pretty popular, I guess, on LinkedIn as well. And they sell a trolley, a golf trolley. So
Okay.
not necessarily something that comes to mind when you think about robotics, but this is one that is yeah, much more advanced. And so it can drive on their own. You can program it. It can do stuff. It can do stuff for you. And he says the scene is it's not so visible, but it's getting more and more.
Hmm.
And it's always interesting to see when how different it is when you're being surrounded by people. This is the reason why I guess a lot of people are right now going to San Francisco and trying to be where it happens, right? At least for the Western world.
Hmm.
And you said that you weren't really being in contact with just when you entered university. Does that make you feel different, awkward, or was that sometimes you felt lonely, or was it never occurred to you because you were so consumed by the things you wanted to do?
I don't really remember it being a big problem. I feel like the internet was such a big resource, and like all these. The thing that I really remember being quite annoyed with was in Belgium, it was very hard to access parts. At the
Hmm.
time, Amazon Germany was doing 3 day shipping, which was like the best available, and felt like a huge upgrade. But I just remember reading so many guides online, and it's like, oh, just pop into Radio Shack and buy this off the shelf, which obviously that doesn't exist anymore in the US either now. But actually, was my biggest point of frustration. It's just that parts availability seemed much worse than it was in, I guess, just the US anywhere. And this was like a constant thing when I was reading these electronic guides and all these things. Like, oh, there's nowhere I can buy resistors or anything like that. But then when I joined university, actually, the University of KU Leuven has a service where you can purchase any parts, and they have like partnerships with electronics vendors, and they do like same day delivery. And I remember that was just the coolest service ever. And just for personal projects, it wasn't even university related. And I remember just being over the moon when I discovered that. I was like, this makes things so much better.
I think this is what comes to mind when you say enabling people, right? when you say this is not only for university stuff, it's for your own personal projects, right?
Yeah, no, that was really cool. I mean, that university was great. I mean, I feel like it kind of felt like a movie scene where I was always working on these things, and no one really in my life was that interested in it. They thought it was cool, but nobody wanted to join in. And then, I mean, the KU Leuven University is quite a reputation for engineering, so it's kind of funny to like end up there, and then everyone's kind of like you, and everyone has the same interests. So it felt like kind of a movie scene. And when I first showed up and realized everyone's just as nerdy about the same things.
Was it hard to get into for you?
So the Belgian university has like a very strange setup, which I really support, which is for engineering, there's no entrance requirements. Um, you do an exam, and the exam results then come with a recommendation of saying, hey, look, you don't look like you're up to speed with some of these concepts. You're unlikely to make it in this field, but you're still welcome to try. And as a result of this, the failure rates are very high. I think the pass rates for the first year are 12% of people pass all the exams, and other people the rest then have to redo some exams. I had to redo one exam, and then some never make it, some eventually make it. But essentially, yeah, everyone's allowed in. It's very hard. And if you pass, then it's fine. And I think this is a great setup. I think the logic is kind of until you're 18, your parents kind of are a big influence on your life. And this is your first fresh start where if you were held back for whatever reason, you kind of have an opportunity to start again. I think that's really cool. I think a lot of people became really good engineers that would have otherwise not had that opportunity.
Yeah, I mean, sorting out early on, because in the very end, it is expensive if you let people start and they're not finishing, right? Um, so my wife works at the university nearby, and because of COVID also, they came up with a few new modules where they support students, like how to schedule things, how to plan, how to really learn, like really helping them to become a
Mm-hmm.
student, right? And because letting people starting and then they fall off, this is very expensive, right? For the
Right.
university. So, and I remember back then, when I was studying mechanical engineering in Berlin, there was some courses, as you said, like 10% made it, right? So these were
Right.
like the first few semesters is like really filter, like if you want to do it or if you don't want to do it.
Yeah,
Thanks.
exactly.
Thanks for sharing here. But again, was it obvious and clear for you to go to university? Was that something that was like so obvious, or because in Germany there's the
Oh,
opportunity to not go to university but doing I don't know the English word, apprenticeship. So you go to school every 2 weeks, and then for 2 weeks you go into a company and work there. So for three
mhm.
years you're switching alternating between school and work. So and after 3 years you get a kind of a diploma. But nowadays everyone is going to university. How is that for you back then?
Um, I'd say my parents strongly encouraged me to go to university,
Hmm.
and because I was mostly interested in like electronics and engineering, and also that was generally accepted that that's great job prospects. It seemed kind of a no-brainer to just try that. um, but I have to say I did struggle in the beginning. In the first semester I actually failed quite a few exams, and I did not expect that because I had a pretty high opinion of myself. I was always very interested in this stuff, so I failed all those exams. That was like a real reality check. But after that it was fine. Just realized that for some things you actually have to work hard.
I mean, it's good that this realization came, right? Versus, okay, I can't do it. I quit, right?
Hmm.
And I mean, one of the reasons why I have this podcast is to really understand there's a lot of people that would have quit. And
Yeah,
it's not no
no.
shame in it, right? It's just I'm trying to decipher what is it that made you, you know what, I failed a few exams. All right, I gotta do it again. So because this is it, maybe now it seems, or back then it was not something that was intentionally, but I'm always trying to understand what is it that made you go through those hardships, or how.
I mean, for me, it was very simple that, like I said, I was really into these things. I always considered myself pretty good at, building things and engineering. And in high school, like I said, at school, this was essentially not encouraged. The school, it wasn't like a very well funded school. There wasn't that many students, and so I was doing everything by myself. And I never really had that much interest in school, and I kind of looked down on it. Um, but then when I went to university, things were different. It's a very reputable university. I really looked up to all the professors. I think they were all, they were genuinely very good professors, and gave inspiring lectures. And so failing there felt very different than getting bad grades in high school, because in high school I didn't care anyway. But here it felt like it was actually cool, and not being able to make it felt like a real failure. So I was
Mm.
just very inspired to 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 prove, at least to myself, that this is something I wanted and wasn't willing to fail. Whereas the things in high school and stuff, if I failed, I just told myself I didn't want it. So.
Yeah, that is easy. And I like the way you described yourself earlier on. You had a high opinion of yourself. And then reality check came. That
Hmm.
was, I think that is, uh, yeah, that might resonate with a few people. At least I can feel this. And
Hmm.
what I always trying to understand is when it comes to university, a lot of people on the podcast told me that they got into robotics or AI or whatever field we are talking about now today by accident or somewhere there very intentionally. How is that for you? Because you said you were building stuff, you were working with electronics. Later on, you start coding a bit, but the actually part of okay, this is something I would like to pursue. I would like to go like deep dig deeper into it. Was that something that also had been maybe, I don't know, saw friends or as you said, maybe your parents? Was that something that you have seen as other people doing?
No, I really don't think so. I think it's all just an extension of. I mean, like I said, my parents encouraged this, but this wasn't really their interest. My parents both not engineers. They both, in some STEM fields, but I don't know. I was just really into building stuff. I feel like, it's the Lego thing is like kind of a joke, but that's kind of true. Like the Lego stuff is building stuff, and when you're 8, it's Legos, and then when you're 12, it's like, Legos with some added parts, and then when you're 14, it's like actual electronics, and it feels like it was just an extension of trying to build more complex things. And now as a job, I build things and other people use it. I mean, that's awesome. I love that.
Like the excitement. Um, I mean, not everyone is going a very straight path. Walk us through how is that going to university, leaving university, first job. I'm always interested in the transition from going from school to real life, whatever that means.
Hmm. um I mean, this when I so this job I'm doing now is my only job that I've ever had. I applied from this after my graduate studies. I think the doing a master's degree was kind of, like I said, my parents strongly recommended. They're like, get a master's degree in STEM. We will support you everything you need to get that, and after that you can do whatever you want. But that's the one thing we want for you, and after that you do whatever you want, and we will support you and make sure you have everything you need, to get a master's degree in STEM. So that was, I mean, that seemed like a good deal to me. So it was always kind of a non-negotiable. So I did my bachelor's degree in Belgium. Then I want to do a master's degree somewhere else because it just seemed interesting to kind of move around. So came to America. I did the master's degree. It was very interesting. And I mean, I was planning to go back to Belgium. I was not planning to stay in America. And I had like a whole road trip planned. I was planning to drive from Santa Barbara to Alaska and like learn to fly float planes and then go home. This was kind of the plan. I'd saved up money for that. But in doing that, I was like, oh, I'll just apply to jobs anyway. And then my friend told me about Comma, which had just started at the time. And I looked up to George, who's running it. And so I just sent an email, and they had some coding challenge, and then they asked me to come in, and I mean that's pretty much it. But at the time, I had no job plans. I was trying to learn how to fly float planes. That seemed like a cool thing to do as like a wrap up of my time in America, and then go back to Belgium. That was kind of the plan, but took a different course. So they're definitely not a super clear plan. Kind of fell into this somehow.
I mean, this kind of coincidences, or I mean, not entirely coincidence, right? You applied because nobody came to
Hmm.
you and said, "Hey, I just saw you. Maybe you would like to join." I mean, even though those things happen as well. Um, I mean, it has been quite a while for you with the company, right? Do you would
Hmm.
like to share? Do you feel comfortable sharing the journey in terms of because you said they kind of just started when you joined, and it has been a while, and especially the industry that you are in. When we talk today is about, I mean, because I'm talking to a lot of founders, and there's a lot of founders on the podcast, mainly robotic AI. So warehouses, logistics, um, manufacturing, this is very far away from people's life, right? So
Hmm.
the majority of my friends, they would never get in contact with someone. Nobody works in manufacturing, nobody works in logistics. So, but what you guys are doing is something that the majority of people are experiencing every day. Yeah, maybe you can tell us a little bit about the early days from you guys.
I mean, yeah. So I joined in 2016, so it's ages, or 2017, sorry. So it's a very long time ago now.
Hmm.
I mean, when I joined, it was like the classic San Francisco setup. It was out of a house. Half the people were living in the house, and Comma had no product at the time. It was just kind of like an open source project. But I just really liked the idea of open source. I liked George's rhetoric around the whole thing, that like we need some kind of open source alternative to these things. I mean, and when I joined, I mean, joined just out of college. I was 21 at the time. um, and I was just doing GPS stuff. Like we wanted to build like accurate, low cost GPS, and I did that. Actually, it's probably almost 2 years that was like my main project. But it turns out that was just not that useful, and then I kind of transitioned to the machine learning stuff, which ended up being more important. Um, yeah, I don't know if that answers most of the question, or if there's important parts I'm missing.
I mean, for me, the as someone who coming from a big city, I never was a car person, right? So public transport was my to go. Then a couple of
Hmm.
years ago, I mean, it's no longer 10, 15 years ago, I think, car sharing became a thing. So I then started driving very regularly. And just now, because I moved out of the city last year into a smaller village, I got a car. So I'm
Hmm.
finally someone who drives a car on a daily basis. So but even back then, I remember that why the hype with driving a car? So I maybe that was because I couldn't afford a Porsche or maybe a super sports car.
Hmm.
But the enjoying part of driving is like Sunday 3 a.m. Nobody's on the streets. Then I enjoy driving. But the majority of time you're stuck in traffic. So you have people around you that, I mean, this is your own perception. Can't drive. Nobody can
Hmm.
drive, right? Except you. So for me, the idea the very first time when this driving, autonomous driving came up, that was fascinating. And I remember back then Elon was pushing it very hard that it will be available very soon. That has been quite a while now. How is it for you coming up and seeing this company 2017? I think he's pushing the idea since 2015. Um,
Yeah.
so how is it for
Uh,
you? How was it for you guys? This kind of
I mean,
expectation and reality.
you mean at our company, or just about me in particular?
No, in general.
I mean, I remember seeing, I think it was in 2015 that Waymo gave a TED talk about self-driving cars. I mean, Waymo's been around for
Hmm.
forever. I think they've been actively testing since like 2008 or something. And I remember that talk was like, my kids are 12 now, and I hope they'll never have to get a driver's. I mean, I'm planning for them never to get a driver's license. That's a literal quote uh, from that TED talk. And at the time, and I was very young, to me that sounded convincing. And I was like, yeah, that sounds awesome. Self-driving cars. I think then the more I got exposed to it, I kind of became a lot more pessimistic. But I remember that like before my real introduction to any of the concrete details of any of this technology, that was like my introduction, the TED talk, and being like, yeah, this sounds amazing. Like safer driving, don't need a driver's license in a few years. Obviously didn't pan out that way. And as soon as I started working at Comma, I think I became increasingly pessimistic. And I'm now just generally very pessimistic about a lot of these things. But that doesn't mean that this isn't like super cool technology that has use and is improving. It's just maybe not improving as much as the advertisements like to claim.
I had a guest, I think that was in season one still, doing autonomous driving in India.
Hmm.
And it was also You know the competitor?
Not sure. I'm not very familiar with the non-US companies.
No, no problem. So, and here the challenges are a bit higher than, let's say, a German city or one in the US. And
Right.
but they were doing pretty well as far as I've seen it from an outside perspective. Uh, s- so walk us through where are you guys at, and what you're aiming at, because I remember I've seen a little bit of your content, or the company's content,
Mhm.
especially on X, and as you said, from an outside point of view, you saw the TED Talk and you were like, this is amazing technology. And now you said pessimistic might not be, you're more realistic because you know you're closer to the front of what's possible or what's
Right.
not possible. So maybe you can give us maybe you can bring us people from the outside world into to up to date. What are the challenges? What is the situation for you guys?
I mean, I think the biggest disconnect between what you can see on the outside and what's inside is just that demos and editing are just you can do incredible things. It makes things seem very convincing that are just completely not true. And I mean, obviously, in the humanoid space, this is a enormous thing right now. Um, like even just with minor editing that's not even that intentional or not even intentionally misleading, you can make things just make seem so much better than they really are. And especially in driving, I mean, the goal for a self-driving car is has to be safer than a human, right? This is the only metrics that matter. And realistically, for people to be happy with the deployment, it probably has to be like 10x safer than a human driver. Like Uber drivers are several times safer than the average person. And I'm assuming people have the expectation that for a truly autonomous car, you need to be above like average Uber driver level. But you can't really see that except in statistics. So I think this is something that's like not really possible to communicate. If you have if you have a system that crashes every few thousand miles, which that's probably the level we're at for our system on the highway, like on clear highway, you're probably not going to have a real disengagement on a normal highway more often than every few hundred miles at least, because on normal highways there's just not that much going on. But there are going to be disengagements of that amount, and that's just not obvious from you if you drive it for a day. It's not obvious from a YouTube video, but that does make it kind of not a self-driving car, because if it crashes every 500 miles, that's obviously not acceptable. So I think that's a big challenge. Is like the real answer is in the deep statistics, and there's really no way to convey that. And all the companies that are advertising them, who are the only people who have access to it, have some massive vested interest in displaying some particular version of events.
The The idea of being able to do this on your own, like not buying a car that has this kind of technology, but as you said earlier, like using a existing car, when the first time when you guys came around the corner, how was the acceptance of that? Because as far as I see, even though the technology is much further than now that it has been, 2017, obviously, um,
Mhm.
very skeptical, and this goes into what you just said, right? The statistics and are you better than a human driver? Even though we all know that human drivers suck, right? And not necessarily from my
I mean,
perspective, just in general, people are tired, people are angry, people are in a hurry. There's so many things, right? And yeah, I mean, obviously we somehow manage it, but there's still so many things happening, right? So. Um, yeah,
yeah, I mean, I
maybe.
think there's opportunity for improvement for sure. But I mean, the right now human drivers are kind of the best we have. So it seems a bit extreme to say they suck.
No, I
But
mean,
I mean, there's
general
room for
speaking, right?
improvement. There's room for improvement for. Also, I just want to be clear that what we work in our company, we're not really trying to make a product that's like actually self-driving, right? The product that we're trying to make is a driver assistance system that is fully supervised and just makes driving easier. And we're just trying to increase the capability of that. I think the technical challenge there are exactly the same with like a real, a company that's trying to achieve unsupervised self-driving, because you essentially just wanted to make less mistakes. But we're not trying to sell you on increased safety or anything like that. It's just kind of a convenience device, and that's kind of what we're pushing on. And we have very different limitations too. We're trying to sell a small device that is easy to install. We have no interest in installing sensors all around the car. I think the average user is not going to find that worth it. for added convenience during driving. So like we're a little bit different in there what we're trying to optimize, but we are working on the same technical challenges.
When I was saying like human drivers suck, an example came up to my mind. I was involved with in a project a few years ago, and it was in manufacturing, and
Mm-hmm.
there was let's call it was a bin picking solution, right? So just you just pick, and I think it was something different, but just to make it maybe more clear, and there were human people on the line, like 3 shifts. And when the startup was working with the manufacturer, the question was, could you achieve the same level that my humans can do? And then the
Mm-hmm.
startup was, so what's the success rate? Yeah, 100%. This is what we are expecting from you guys. And then
Mm-hmm.
like the guys, I mean, everyone was in statistics, right? And I mean, not really fresh from university, but pretty fresh from university. So says, what are you talking about, 100%? Yeah, we would like your system to be as good as our human people, right? 3 shifts. They have been doing this for many years. So there's no way, there's no world that you guys do 100%, right? Even the 99.999% is impossible, right? I would
Right.
guess what we suggest is we bring in 2 of our guys, and they control every single shift with you, like every single time after you for 2 weeks, and then we make a very long list, and then we look at what's your success rate. And from our experience with a young startup, they say that might be 88%, 92%, 95%, and we would like to be challenged that number, not the
Mm-hmm.
100% that you're suggesting.
Right.
And because he said, yeah, if you're looking up a statistic book or a production book of any university, there will be in the first semesters there will be no 100%, right?
Right.
And but the people have been on the shop floor for many years, over 20 years, so it was very heated discussion. So there's a reason why I say
That's funny.
humans might be the best we have, but like obviously, objectively, we suck. So there's so many accidents that happen, and it would be interesting to know, coming back to what you said earlier, what is the level of success? And you said you are not aiming for like total like being able to drive the car autonomously. Sorry.
Mm-hmm.
But it would be still interesting what kind of acceptance rates we would expect from a car company delivering.
You mean like full unsupervised autonomy?
Yeah.
Yeah, to me personally, I think 10x the bar of average human driver is a really good standard. I think that makes it better than most professional drivers, in which case it's like a no-brainer, right? But if it's like on par of like an average driver and like a professional driver is better, it seems like kind of a rough sell. But yeah, I mean, to your point, like there's if you look at the failure modes of these extremely high-end, autonomous systems, ours is kind of limited in compute and various things. But if you look at like Tesla and Waymo, you can see that they excel at things that humans are not very good at, like for example being attentive the whole time and
Mm.
reliable and not being conservative enough. So there is a clear advantage there. Humans are still better at like the really nuanced stuff. Like there's just really complex scenes, making the decision if a trash bag flies across the highway to drive through it or to swerve and potentially get very close to other cars. That sort of stuff is super hard, and humans are way better at that right now. But yeah, like as soon as you fix that, you get so many benefits from the fact that the robot driver doesn't get distracted. It just drives however conservatively you set the settings to, and doesn't fall asleep. So I think if you fix the nuanced cases, like you said, there is a lot of opportunity for improvement. It's just that right now the nuanced cases, the robots just can't do yet.
Um, Coming back to what I've seen, seeing something from you guys earlier, where are you with the product? Is there anything you would like to share regarding a recent announcement or collaboration? I'm always interested in what's happening at the moment with the company.
I mean, so we had a new product launch last weekend. And so we sell like a small device that you install in your car. And the new device does the same thing. It runs the open source OpenPilot. It's just a tiny bit small. It's just a lot smaller. And it like improves some stuff that, the previous one, sometimes when it's very hot, the fan is like mildly audible. That's fixed. The thermal performance is better. But that's basically it. We sell the device now. That's the form factor of a dash cam. But other than just recording, it also, It does the steering on the highway. On some cars, does the gas and the brake. And it's just like a very, very high-end cruise control, basically. It's just a convenience feature. Out of our fleet, um, OpenPilot is driving on the cars on average about 30% of the time, and a little over 50% of the miles. So that kind of gives you kind of an idea of how it's used. So people generally use it for a lot of highway driving, and much less outside of that. But like personally, my experience is that when I do short drives, I don't mind driving myself. When I drive 3 hours to LA on the highway, it's so nice to just press a button and just observe instead of having to like constantly adjust the lane position. That's kind of where we're at. That's kind of the product, and we're trying to bring up the quality. The like technical things that we're working on now is we want the level of reliability that we have on the highway, which is people have a really good experience on the highway. It's still supervised, but it's very comfortable to supervise it and take over when needed. But in like red lights and green lights and stop signs, is really not that reliable, and it's not really an upgrade to engage instead of driving yourself. So that's what we want to get. We want to improve that quality so that that's just as smooth and comfortable as the highway experience. And then I think people will love it in city driving too. It's kind of the next goal.
So you said that you've been with the company, what now, for 7 years, I guess?
A little over 8 years now. A really long time.
How big, you said back then you were living in and this is, I mean, like I said, talk about this as much as you like, always trying to see like behind the scenes. Back then, how big was the team when you joined, and how big is it now?
So I think it was 6 people when I joined, and now we're still pretty small. I think we're like roughly 25 people.
Mm.
Yeah, so it's
I
not
mean,
super big.
the advantage of a team like that is that you can get things done very fast, like prototyping and testing things out and communicating in between.
Hmm.
Um, I talk to a lot of robotics companies, right? And here deployment is a big topic. So and talking to system integrators and these kind of things. I think, as you said, that your product is something that you can buy and yeah, just
Hmm.
I buy it online. The installment process, you said it's very easy. I can do it on my own. Are these advantages that contribute to the fact that you're still very very small? Because some
Oh yes,
people.
definitely. Yes, yes. That is very intentional as well.
Hmm.
Is I mean, everyone that works at this company is either an engineer or somehow working in like production operation type stuff. So no one is involved with talking to other people, with making partnerships, with doing advertising, which is why we can, do as much as we do with such a small team. Everyone is either building something or designing something or like making sure the lights stay on in the office. Uh, which, yeah, that I think that is exactly what you're saying. It does provide a lot of efficiency. This is also why we're not interested in these other things. It's like to really like partner with another company, you have to then hire several people who are like the interface, and everything slows down. And I mean, we're just not really interested in that. The direct to consumer is kind of awesome to keep fast. Consumers are also great critics. They're very honest about when something's bad and also honest when something's good, which is nice.
But I mean, being able to make to see what is worth building, like feature wise, and it's because there's nice to haves and must have, and
Mhm.
is that hard for you guys to navigate through?
Uh, I think no, because we all use our own product. I think that
Mm.
makes it much easier. We're not that different from the people we're trying to sell to. Mostly the people we sell to are still somewhat enthusiastic about tech and about cars and DIY. And like, they really just want the same things we do. So I think if we were building a product, and I think this is why this is a challenge that you're bringing up, is in the robotic space, we're trying to build a robot for some company that's not you, that has some goals that you don't fully understand. This is a big challenge. But when you're using the product every day and have complaints about it, um, it's really exactly the same as what the users want.
There's a certain hype at the moment regarding tech companies in general, especially in
Hmm.
AI and robotics. Just a few days ago, no, I think it was yesterday, another announcement of a yeah, I think it's still a seed round. And is that something that is attractive for you guys?
What do you mean by that?
In regards of just like raising money and
Oh, no, no. No, no, we're really not into that. We're very much anti this sort of stuff. I mean, we've raised, so the company to date has raised $18 million, and we do like almost very roughly $10 million in revenue a year. So on financially, where the business makes sense, which I think is not true for most of these companies that you're describing.
Mm.
And I think that's pretty distasteful. I don't really know how it's all going to play out. I'm skeptical. It's a good idea to raise dramatically more money than you have even remotely possible in revenue over the next 5 to 10 years. I think it's distasteful, and I think also a bad idea long term. We'll see how it plays out. Honestly, I think it's been going for a lot longer than I thought it would, but I hope it doesn't go forever.
I mean, I'm asking this because I always trying to get different perspective to this because I have a few people that that are very convinced there is a necessity of doing this because it either might be to get ahead of of competitors, right? For example, like if they do it and we don't do it, even though our tech is better, they get a injection of speed that we might not be able to catch up with, right? So even though we don't want to raise, we do need to raise because there are some other ones who are not doing a good job as we do, but to be on par with them or having the same kind of access to resources, we kind of feeling forced to raise money. So there's a reason why I'm asking this question to see the different kind of perspectives of startups, right? Some are more conservative with their money, as you said. Uh,
Hmm.
how much do I raise? How much revenue do I actually make? And how much revenue can I make probably in the next 3 to 5 years? So
Hmm.
it's interesting to see different kind of perspectives here.
I mean, just to add to that, I mean, my opinion is you can raise a lot of money, and that you can then invest that money, and it will buy you some amount of time, right? For example, George gave this presentation at our launch event, comparing the orders of magnitude difference between us and Tesla, and they spend three to four orders of magnitude more money on all the same things that we spend money on, which is like compute and data and all those things, and they're clearly ahead, right? They're quite far ahead of us. But they're probably only like 2 years ahead. As soon as someone makes some big innovation in this technology, it trickles down to everyone else. And being the first is just incredibly expensive. And I think it's not worth it. And it doesn't make sense that, I feel like the pitch for self driving, for raising all this money, is that somehow you're going to be the only player in the space, and that somehow you're going to like control all transportation for 10 years and then recoup this money. But I think it's just a completely unrealistic outcome. I think what will happen is that the first players will be the first in the market and have dominance for some short time, like a couple of years, which is I think what's happening with Waymo now. And then, I think Waymo is not doesn't make financial sense. Tesla does, and I think they will dominate for some time. But then the other people will catch up, and I think, if you can't recoup those investments in those couple of years, I don't think it's worth it.
Thanks for sharing this insightful view on the technology. Because I'm mainly talking with people in like I said in robotics, so not too many
Hmm.
people, and so this is the reason why I was so happy that you said yes to the podcast when we talked a couple of weeks ago. For me, it is still something I'm eager to get my hands on because
Hmm.
it really bothers me that it is wasted time, as you said, driving the highway for a couple of hours, right? I commute
Right.
sometimes, and but also this is one part, but also and this is, as you said, is the hardest part, like in the city. Like having this kind of traffic not only going on the highway because here's
Hmm.
where the majority of energy goes leaves my body. So seeing other people
Right.
and arguing with yourself and trying to be patient with other people and just the amount of mistakes, right? So there's a green light while you're still staying. Okay, this is a
Right.
roundabout. You don't know how to enter. So these kind of things. And if we get AI to be able to solve this, right, to get less friction of and being able to talk or watch a movie. So I'm really keen on seeing that. But I have a lot of friends that have, like I said, I'm not a car person, that have a car for 10, 15 years, 20 years, and they know this is taking away my freedomness. This is taking away my I mean this is me assuming here, like driving a car for a couple of times where you don't need to do anything. So experience this a few times And
Hmm.
it might be in the very early morning when you go to work, or when you're coming back from work. Maybe this is even more important. And just like getting into the car, closing the eyes, and just waiting 20 or 30 minutes, and then you just get out of the car. Experience this 2 or 3 times. This is my assumption. I bet you say, okay, I'm never gonna drive again to work. So,
Yeah, no,
uh,
I mean, I completely agree. I mean, I like cars too. I like driving too, and I imagine I never want to give up that freedom, uh, but not in a commute to work. I do not want to commute to work. It's not fun. Also, I don't know if you've driven on a Waymo, but I drove first time on like a couple months ago. I mean, it's just absolutely incredible. It's such a good experience. Like you just get in, you're completely alone, and then at some point you get dropped off.
yeah. No, no, I haven't experienced it. I mean, I was in San Francisco last year, but yeah, we had our own car. We were driving around in our car and didn't experience it. But
Hmm.
coming from I mean, here in the uh, state I'm in. So there's
Hmm.
Porsche and Mercedes. Both are located here in that state. So I always assume that the majority of people here are crazy about cars, and there's a reason why I'm always bitching about you guys has been surrounded and raised with car companies, and you still don't know how to drive. Anyways, the technology, coming back to that one, the technology that you said, them being a few years ahead. Uh, are you looking at, and here, just say as much as you like and you don't like, are you looking at competitors and what they do? Or is that because, yeah, is there something that you're interested in, or are you focusing on how to improve your own product more?
I mean, we're obviously aware of what other people are doing
Mm,
and interested. I think on a technical, we were into like end-to-end self-driving for a really long time, and for a long time we felt like we had the better strategy long term, and so we're not that inspired by other people. But now times have changed, and a lot of the big companies, especially Tesla is the biggest example, has moved to end-to-end, and obviously they've done really well at that, and they have a system that drives much better. So now it is interesting to see now that everyone's kind of switching to end-to-end, which is something we're very passionate about. Seeing some people get like incredible performance out of that, and obviously we take inspiration from that, and see what things they found that we missed and stuff like that. But I mean, they're competitors in the sense that they also make self-driving software and train models to do that. But we don't really compete in terms of products. We don't really have big competitors in terms of products. Our only real competitors are kind of what the car manufacturers ship with their car that are not Tesla, and those systems still largely suck. So
regarding the opportunity to use the system outside of the US?
yeah, I mean, we have quite a lot of users in Europe, actually. Even in Germany, it's quite popular. Okay, I blank on the numbers now, but it's probably something on the order of 15% of our users or 20% of our users are non-US. Yeah, no, Europe's quite popular. South Korea is very popular. Japan, Taiwan, and like some users in Australia. That's kind of the biggest non-US market.
I mean, maybe this is too personal here, but when I talk to startups and they are in the very early stages or in the first, I don't know, 3, 5 years, so younger than you guys, um, then there's one or two requests from overseas, and then that would be interesting. Going to Japan would be interesting. Go to South Korea would be interesting, like business wise, right? But the
Hmm.
question that always comes down to: can you support? Do you have the documentation ready? Do you have some people being able to? I mean, with your system, as you have a product, you just send it back. But
Hmm.
yeah, still, there might be some certificates necessary. There might be some translation necessary, right? I mean, with English-speaking countries like the Australia might not be the problem, but like you mentioned, Japan or Korea, was that something that you guys struggled with, or?
I mean, I work on mostly the machine learning, so I can only answer some of these things.
Oh
But
yeah.
in terms of translation, I mean, it's an open source project, so it's actually pretty easy to get all the translation done. So OpenPilot's in like so many different languages. People are excited to contribute their languages, and it probably supports way more languages than it should. So that's not a problem. In terms of support, we're a very DIY product, and are very clear about the fact that we do not provide any support.
Mm.
It's a hardware product. We ship it overseas. If they don't like it, if they have issues, they just ship it back. It's kind of annoying internationally because of all the like customs and all that stuff, which is, I
Mm.
mean, that stuff is really annoying. But yeah, we don't really have to support internationally. I think we are very clear about about how it works, which is we make a hardware product. If you think you can figure it out, please try it out. If you're not having a good time, just get a refund. Like I mean, the problem is we support so many different cars. We can't even give support, even if we try, because there's so many different platforms. Sometimes even just community members are experts in them, and like there are cars in Germany that German enthusiasts have ported and made support OpenPilot, and they know a lot about them. And if you ask them technical questions, they're going to be very happy to help you. But we can't even help with that because we didn't work on that, and so. But it works pretty well. I mean, we get enthusiasts buying the product. They're very aware of the trade-off. Works for some people, doesn't work for everyone.
Um, I mean, not always, but very often, I'm trying to, like, towards the end of the podcast, I'm always trying to see what's next for you guys. You just had a launch last weekend, and you said that you had some of your goals or ideas or visions for very long term. I mean, you talked about this a bit earlier, but what's next for you guys? How does 2026 look like for you? Just improving the product incrementally, or some bigger steps?
Yeah, so we launched a new product, which I think is it's a much better product for most people. So that's one big goal, is to scale up that production, make sure people have a good time with that. Then on the software side, like I said, I think our system is extremely comfortable on the highway. It's probably more comfortable than the average human driver. That's not true outside of the highway. It's not true at red lights. In some stop and go situations, it's not like super human smooth. So that's really the next thing we really want to iterate on. We want the OpenPilot to be like superhuman, comfortable feeling in basically all normal city driving and all highways driving at all speeds. So that's kind of what we're working on there. And like really long term, OpenPilot is the biggest open source robotics project. Period. It is just it's the biggest project on GitHub that is robotics. And we do want OpenPilot to be a robotics operating system, not necessarily just for ADAS, but just for things in general. And we have like some small projects we're playing around with. We've had like an indoor robot that's like, it's not great, but just like as an experiment. But we are interested in growing that long term. Like, I think OpenPilot is basically a more production capable version of ROS, basically. And so we're interested in growing that too.
I like this. We give ourselves the opportunity to play around a bit thing, because very often, I mean, in the past with bigger companies, but especially now with startups, I mean, it seems like you have product market fit, right? But it's always nice to see, as you said, for example, the topic with end to end, and now a lot of companies jumping on that train. It's always nice to see what are we capable of, what is our interest, or where do we see maybe potential. So just another company comes up to my mind. They do a vacuum cleaner, but he said, uh, like long term, there is no reason why we should not build a humanoid in 5 years, right? Because
Right.
you do need to navigate, you do need to plan, you do need to have vision. There's a lot of things that are even involved on a very low level, right? But if you expand this, and if you build this idea out more, then you obviously come into different things that might not be your core product yet, right? So focusing on, but
Yeah.
yeah.
You also learn other things when you do that, which is other things about your software and stuff that may not be exposed if you don't experiment. So I agree. It's a good strategy.
I'm very happy that you said yes, Harald. Do you call yourself Harald or Harald? How do you say this?
Well, when I'm in Belgium or Germany, I call myself Harald, and then here I just go with Harald. I don't try to make it don't try to make it a confusing problem.
Yeah, I'm very happy that you said yes, and I think it's great that you guys are building on open source projects. Because I think, especially now that we were talking about the humanoid topics earlier on, if everything is concentrated in only very few companies, right? I think we are not as good. We are better off if we have a lot of people trying to keep things open source and contribute to things, right?
Yes, it's a much nicer future if there's open source robots in your home too, and not
Yeah.
just the ones you can't control.
Thank you for your time. I'm looking forward to maybe get one of those things, one of your products as well. Getting a little bit rid of my driving here. It was nice of you taking the time and sharing so many insights. And I see the little one in the back, and
Oh
so I
yeah,
do see that you
the
guys are playing
robot.
around. Let's see
No,
what comes, what we will hear from Comma in the future.
yeah, no. I love. We try to buy as many robot toys as we can. It's always fun to see what's out there. Right? Yeah. Thank you very much. It was my pleasure. I'm happy you invited me.
Take care and talk to you soon.
Thank you. Have a good one.
Bye bye.